Hello guys, welcome back to ESENtaxa. Andrea Papito here. In this video I wanted to talk about the forfait regime 2024 and what are the ways to best exploit this tax benefit because of the unwanted regime that has been shrinked, that doesn't have the same level of deduction in 2023. So now what we have to do, if you want to spare taxes in Italy and you want to move to Italy, well, here in ESENtaxa, with our accounting team, we have found three main strategies you can exploit using the forfait regime. Pay only 5% taxes for 5 years and then it becomes 15% in 2024 and stay in Italy with your pocket full of money, basically. So if you're new to this channel, I wanted to just remind you that ESENtaxa talks about how to optimize taxes in different countries. We're not just talking about Italy, we also talk about Belgium, Portugal, and Republic of San Marino and Albania. And we help people to understand taxes in those jurisdictions, but also how to optimize taxes, how to squeeze their taxes, and especially we do this work before the relocation. So in order to see if the relocation in that country makes sense tax-wise, because a lot of people are looking for a jurisdiction to have more money in their pocket and also pay less taxes. So cost of living, which is lower taxes to pay, more enjoyable life. Okay, easy, simple as that. Now, let's move to this topic of today. It's about moving to Italy with the forfait regime. Why we want to push the forfait regime a little bit more in this channel in 2024? Because of the shrink of the tax benefit of the unwanted regime. Now, I will remind you quickly how the forfait regime works in Italy. It's very simple. There are no restrictions, especially if you're a foreigner, you move to Italy for the first time, you're automatically be considered as a startup activity. This regime, of course, it's only addresses to freelancer or small entrepreneur. So basically, forfait regime, you are a VAT, you will open a VAT position, you will have a VAT number in Italy, so you will invoice. There is no VAT that you should add at your invoices if you're working within the Italian clients or if you're working as a B2C activity. So no VAT, no VAT to add at your invoices. So this is a big benefit. You will be more competitive on your market, but mostly all your incomes, all your invoicing, it's subject to a taxation of 5%. 5% for the first 5 years. Okay, and then it becomes 15%. Of course, 5% is not calculated on your entire revenue. The name forfait regime, it's coming from a forfait amount of cost that the Italian state gives you by default, based on your type activity. So the type of activity in Italy are described by the ATECO code, so are the codes. These are common things in Europe. So you have a code that starts from 7.10.90 and something. This code describes your activity, and based on this code, you have a percentage of deductibility given by default, like 22% if you're a consultant, 37% if you do a different type of activity. The highest percentage could be 60% if you are if you work in the field of commerce or e-commerce, so you have goods to sell back. So based on the type of activity, you have deductibility forfait percentage, and your 5% is calculated after you have removed your figurative or forfait cost. Imagine you have 100,000 euro of income. Okay, the forfait regime never had, you cannot reach 100,000, but just to give an example, 100,000 euro, you remove 60% of forfait cost, so you're going to pay taxes, that 5% only on 40,000 euros. So that's the principle behind the forfait regime. Of course, the forfait regime unfortunately doesn't allow you to reach 100,000 euro, but the threshold is 85,000. So that's the big constraint of this regime. But why we should move forward anyway with this regime, even if you pass 85,000 euro in Italy? Well, for a simple reason. Actually, three reasons. We have found three scenarios where you can really use the forfait regime, even passing 85,000 euro, and pay all around 5% taxes. Now, if you have, for example, if you move to Italy and you got hired with a salary of 30,000 euro, and you are an employee as a full-time, okay, you have the chance to apply for the forfait regime at parallel. If you pass this 30,000 euro per year, you cannot do it. Okay, so this is the first scenario. So if you have basically 30,000 euro as salaries, you can have the forfait regime opened up to 85,000 euro at the same time. Now, what happened is that when you are a full-time employee, you pay the full IMPS, which is the social contribution, at 33%, which is not true that you're going to pay this 33% social contribution, but it's all the entire social contribution is paid by your employer. So it means that you pay only here 9% of it. So since you have these things, in the forfait regime, you can have your IMPS totally abolished under certain ATECO codes. So you have a specific ATECO codes which grants you a 24% IMPS to pay on the forfait regime, but this one should not be paid if you are already paying 33% of IMPS on your 30,000 gross income. So you don't pay anything here in Social Security, and after the big deduction that we have talked before, the forfait deduction percentage, you're going to reduce 85,000 euro by your forfait deduction, and what remains will be taxed at 5%. Okay, so your real tax pressure here will be basically between 1% and 2.5%. We have made some calculations, so based on each deductibility forfait cost, you will have a lower tax rate for the first 5 years. Okay? So this is scenario number one. You are a full-time employee below 30,000 euro per year with a full-time contract. In parallel, you can run a business with a forfait regime. Important thing, this activity has to be different from this one. The scenario number two, it's very similar to this one, but instead of being hired by a general company, you can basically move to Italy, open the forfait regime first, and then you have this 85,000 euro threshold that at a certain point you're going to pass. Once you reach this point, what you can do is to open in parallel an SRL, an Italian company, okay, in which you can basically be hired as not administrator, but as a full ordinary employer, which will basically create the same structure as this one. And then you can skip paying the IMPS from this forfait regime, and every amount of money passing this threshold can flow in your SRL and keep the money here instead of give back this money to the state, because as soon as you pass this threshold, you're going to be turned into ordinary regime, which is extremely heavy taxed. Okay, there is a kind of SRL that needs to be set up. It's not a general one. You also need to have an administrator, which is another person living in Italy that should hold a percentage of this company. So the structure, this is a scenario that in this video we cannot cover all the details of the structure, but here's just I want to give you a glimpse how many things we can do in order to keep the forfait regime as much as possible in Italy, even though we pass this 85,000 euro, okay? Also here, the two activity must be different. Now, let's move to the third scenario. In the third scenario, we can have basically this situation where I'm going to pass again the threshold with the forfait regime, and I want to keep invoicing a lot of money, and I want to have this money in my pocket anyway. I don't want to have this scenario in which I can keep my money in my SRL because of future investments. I want to immediately have this money, so I want to withdraw them with a dividend. But the problem with the dividend is that you have to pay the taxes at the corporate level and then at the dividend level. So the SRL structure here, it doesn't really seem so convenient. So what is the latest third and important trick that you can use? You can have the forfait regime with an ATECO code different from an ATECO code of a company of which you are a partner. So you create between the company and you a partnership, okay? So all the money up to 85,000 euro will be invoicing through your forfait regime structure, and here you pay 5% taxes, and after 5 years 15%, 5% as we said after the deductions, or after the forfait deduction here. And here you are a partner of this SRL. So both of you guys, you're going to agreed with all the money that are coming here a certain percentage will be a profit that flows in my pocket. And the other part of the profit will flow on this SRL pocket, okay? So you're not going to be an owner, you're not going to have share of this SRL, but thanks to the partnership that you have created with this company, you can receive the money. The profit will be split based on what you have established in the profit between you as an individual and the SRL. But with this kind of contract, a specific contract, which is basically it's a partnership with losses shared. It's a contract where if the company has some losses, you also be responsible of the losses of a company, even though without owning any shares. So this is the particular contract. So if you establish this contract, then the money that goes here will come straight to the pocket at 26% flat tax. So the same taxation that we apply for Italian dividends. Of course, paying 26% is not the same as 5%, but when you pass this threshold, it's the only taxation you're going to pay based on what you have agreed on the profit with this SRL. Here there is other details that needs to be analyzed with you, but you see there are 1, 2, 3 and other scenarios which might be liable for your specific situation, which might match your specific situation. So, create a partnership with an Italian company, create an SRL in parallel with your forfait regime, and have an administrator that just run the administrative part of your company. This is also useful to skip paying the imps. Also here, this is another matter. And also be a full employee of another company and run in parallel your forfait regime. All these cases allow you to pass the 85,000 euro threshold of the forfait regime. So up to this threshold you pay 5%, and above we have the second parallel solution, which at a reasonable tax rate, around 26%, 24%, we can tax the extra amount of money without exiting the forfait regime in parallel. I hope you like this video. Here it's a little bit complex. There are some complexity behind it, but of course we try to push at limit, we try to exploit as much as possible all the tax benefit in 2024. If you want to know more, in the description below the video we have our email contact, info@esentaxa.com, and also our link, Calendly link, in which you can call us. You can schedule a call with us, with me, with my colleague Fausto. We can have 1 hour call with tax simulation, which is extremely important for this kind of situations, and we can basically tax simulate your situation before the relocation to Italy, and let's check if this structure makes sense for you or not. Subscribe the channel, the like button and notification bell to be always updated whenever we release this kind of video. Thank you, see you to the next time.